guys, welcome to the first ever Isto James live stream. I'm really excited to do this one, firstly just because it's the first one we've ever done. Now I am going live and I'm going to show you all of We have a mediator with us today as well. We have Mr. Jeremy Goodell. He will be running the chat, so if you have any questions, please send them in. He will be able to read them out loud as I'm doing this. If you want to paint along, here's some of the stuff that I'm going through if you have it around you, or watch this later as well if you'd like. This is the stuff you're going to need to make it happen. Obviously, we have a canvas. 16 by 20 is what I'm using, but you could use any canvas that you like. The paintbrushes I'm using, really simple. I'm using, the first one here is just a flat, large brush. We're going to be using that to cover up our whole background. We have a smaller angled brush, just like our flat brush. We're going to use this to do some of the other details in there as well. And of course a detail brush. We're going to do some palm trees and some other small, tiny details with that guy. And I actually got a sponge here. You don't need to have a sponge. You could have one of these bigger ones kind of flailed out. The sponge is going to make some really cool wave effects, and you'll see how that works a little bit later as well. Let's talk real quickly about the paints. I am using a variety set here from Craftsmart. You can actually use some of these as well. They're very easy to find. You can pick them up at any store, or if later you want, you can go through the Amazon link and get some from us as well if you click on the link below. That way you'll have all the same materials that I'm using. The specific colors that I'm going to be using on this one today, I don't know if I can put this tray out here and put it on the overhead cam. Let me get this open. See, everybody's going to have to wait anyway. So the ones we have here, we have just some, it's phthalo blue, but any blue will do as long as it's a darker blue. We have just straight black. We have an aqua color or a turquoise. That's going to be really good for some of the real natural pretty ocean colors we're going to be doing. And orange and yellow to make some sunset. So overall you just need some white, some black, some dark blue, an aqua color, yellow and orange, and you should be set to go. So without further ado, let me just jump in and we'll start this whole painting. I'm going to first, to make sure my paint spreads well, I want to prep this canvas. You want to make sure there's not any like extra dust or anything. If you've had these laying around for a while, go ahead and wipe it off. And then just put a thin layer of water on here. Super simple. And I'm going to just keep going back and forth. I'm not going to drown this thing in water. I just want a thin coat of water on there. And the reason I'm doing that is to make sure this paint spreads as good as possible. So I don't need to be perfect with this, but I do want to cover as much space that I can. And I'm using these large flat brush strokes like this just to spread it around faster and to make it more efficient as well. And that should be more than plenty. We just don't, if I were to pick this up, I don't want to see runs or all this water spilling down or off. If that's what's happening, you've got too much water on there. It'd be better just to keep brushing and make it in there. If you check from the side too, hello, you can actually see where the water has covered and where you might have missed it, but that should be good enough. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to do the first top half here. When I say top half, if you cut this down the middle, we're going to do this part as our sunset part. So what I'm going to do is just do some yellow first to start it out. I like to take globs, circles or X's, and first kind of lay my paint out before I try to spread it. This ensures that it gets spread out evenly, and once that paint is already on there, as we go and fill in this background, it'll pick up paint as we go. So I won't have to keep going back and forth to make sure my brush is filled up. So there we go. That's how easy it is. Now I'm doing the same technique where I go back and forth, back and forth. And my goal here really is just to make sure I'm covering up this background. We are going to have a lot of water and waves covering a lot of this, but you don't know which part exactly. So it's better just to do a thorough job and make sure you cover everything. I also love to color the sides. I've done this painting more times than I could probably count and have it hanging up all over and all around my house. But I'll probably still hang this one up when I'm done with it as well. If you've seen any of my other videos, you might have seen that we've got a lot of paintings hanging around because I kind of do this a lot. It's a good thing. How we doing over there, Mr. Moderator?
We're doing okay.
Doing okay. We're surviving?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the chat up on the screen.
Okay. This is definitely the first time we've ever done this, so we are learning. There's some growing pains, but we're going to make it through. Just make sure you say hi if you are watching. All right, so let me get back to the painting. The next step is, while this is still wet, I'm going to take orange, and we're only going to do the top part of this, of the painting orange, because we want to have that gradient sun effect. That's why having this paint and this water here first, you're going to notice this color mixes in with that yellow really beautifully, actually. And even for being level 1 beginner paints, these, they do hold their pigment pretty well for what they are for starter paints, so it's kind of nice. I like working with these ones, especially for the easy beginner paintings, because it'll do what you need it to do, and that's the good thing. So what we're getting here, so it's kind of starting to look like a sunset, I would think. Now if you see there's some powdery sections, it's kind of drying out, that's exactly what it is. You're either, you don't have enough paint on here, or the water is starting to evaporate and dry out. So if you add just a little bit of water, you'll see that it goes right back to mixing pretty good. And if not, there's always a fail-safe. You can always add more paint, which I'm going to have to anyway, because I'm going to need to use this yellow again. So now we have a sunset looking background. Looking good. Let me add some more yellow paint because I'm about to run out a little bit. Perfect. And I'm going to go a little bit further down than just that halfway mark, just because I want to cover my bases, make sure I don't have any of this white canvas coming back and taking over the painting. We want it to look like a really great painting. So I'm going to do a good job and make sure this is blended really nicely.
Christine says hi.
Oh, hey, hey, hi. Hey, hey. Welcome to the first live stream. I'm going to add just a little bit of white here at the bottom, just to brighten up the bottom side of this sunset. And I'll go back with some white later and do that, but I think that looks pretty good. I think we're going to stop at that point. Now the next thing, oop, there we go, got that last line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is rinse my brush, because I'm going to completely change my colors now. What I'm going to go to is my blue. We're going to lay down our actual ocean wave part here. But before I do that, I have to make sure that this top part is dry before I start really bringing stuff in. So I'm going to have to hit some heat on here, or wait patiently. I can hit some heat on here, right? That won't be too loud for them. Be all right? Perfect. You could use a blow dryer at home too if you need to, if you're doing this. A blow dryer works really well. I actually use a heat gun. It just works a lot faster. It's hot. It gets the job done pretty quick. And with these acrylic paints, they dry really fast as well, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. If you don't have one of these at home, if you're painting along, then you can just let it dry for 5 minutes or so. It should be fine. And it looks like I'm already good to go. So with that part done, we're going to put in our ocean now in our background. So I'm going to go to that royal blue, the phthalo blue, dark blue, whatever blue it is that you have. Find a nice rich blue that you like. And I just realized I dried out this bottom part of my painting, so I'm going to put some water on here as well, just to keep it going. And I already put some blue on there, but that's okay. So same principle, if I want to spread this paint around really easily, having a wet surface makes it that much easier to do. So first step, like I said, I'm going to take some of this blue and I'm just going to spread it around the bottom here. All right. And this is what happens if you use a little too much water. I did, but it's okay. It's completely salvageable for me. Is you're going to see that it almost won't stick to the canvas and it's hard to cover up. So that's why you got to find a nice balance. But these paints do dry really fast. So I'm going to just give it a minute and it should catch up. See, there we go. Pretty easy, straightforward. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July. I did a lot of painting myself. Stay tuned for more videos from us coming out pretty soon. We've been very busy the last few days. So if you want to watch more of these, oh man, I got to interrupt myself. That's some good looking orange and blue. That's some good looking sky. I also paint my edges on here. If any of you have seen my videos before, I get crazy OCD. I need to make sure this stuff is covered. And it only takes a second, but to me it's totally worth it. Try not to bump no cameras. Okay, so we got our main blue here. Now the next tricky part is, if you've never done this before, is getting this actual wave to sit in here. So as I'm using this same blue, I'm going to come through and I'm going to make this kind of C shape. Kind of reminds me of like the Colorado flag, if you've ever seen that. But I'm going to make a C shape, and that's what's going to create our wave here. And I'm going to use the same colors. Boom, boom. And then I'm going to pretend like I'm going along with this and I'm raising it up as if I was actually the water creating a wave. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is actually just the easy fun part. But I'm turning my brush as I go in. I'm turning my brush and just kind of seeing it through, letting it run out of paint naturally. And that's how you're going to see this kind of splatter effect up in this top corner here. And I'm just going to fill in the rest. We're going to go all the way to the left side completely, because that's going to be our perspective. I know all that hard work to make this orange and yellow look good right out the window, but that's okay. To me, it's thorough, and you did a good job making sure that if you didn't do a good job, you could see through it. Then at least you're seeing colors, not a canvas. Ooh, and that almost doesn't look like a C, so I'm going to round this out a little bit. There we go. It's almost like if you're a surfer looking down a tube wave. Here's the idea. All right, so now we got our dark layer. When we do these, when I do these scenic paintings, what I like to do is work from back to front, whatever's farthest away and then what gets closer to you. And I also like to work with depth. And what I mean by that is, obviously we got our sky, that's going to be the farthest away. Then the ocean, that's closest to us, but the ocean's going to have different layers of depth. Some parts of it's really deep, and then obviously as the closer it gets to shore and it's not as deep and more shallow, you'll see more of the color coming out of it. So I got to do some deep ocean first, and so that means I'm doing black all around these edges just so we can really create emphasis and make this look closer to a realistic wave. So I'm going to do the corners black. I know this just seems crazy, but it'll work. And I'm going to do this bottom part of this ocean black as well. And what this is going to do is simulate, hey, this is some really deep water right here. But it's also going to take our eyes and drag it once we put these nice, pretty, really beautiful bright colors into it. It's going to emphasize those bright colors that much more and draw your eye that direction. So I'm just going to do this with the corners. Some of it's drying a little bit. Corner up here looks good. Now I'm not going to do this corner because the wave would be spraying out. We wouldn't be technically deep water. I'm doing it on this corner just a little bit just so we can get that emphasis on those pretty colors. All right, now I'm going to come back through. I'm actually going to I'm going to switch brushes here. I'm going to go to my flat brush. So you can just put that other brush in the water and let it sit there for a minute. Excuse me, my nose got very itchy. Only because I'm on camera. Okay, we're good. Now I'm going to take that same black with my smaller angled brush. I'm going to do just a couple of little lines. These are going to imitate the ripples of the wave and how that comes out. So as I'm doing that, just creating some ripples, some waves. You can even do kind of little shapes through the ocean. I'm going to cover this up with some more blue, but because it's black, it's going to pop out really strong no matter what I do to try to cover it up. So I'm going to do this throughout. And sound effects always help. This is supposed to be relaxing and fun. Sometimes I just like to make little sound effects. It is what it is. And then around these edges, I like to kind of soften those lines so they're not hard lines where it fades from black to orange. So all I'm doing is tapping this brush around that line from where it jumps from black to blue, just to soften that up a little bit. And that actually looks more fluid like water versus just hard lines. Cool. Now I'm going to switch my brushes again. I'm going back to that big brush. I am going to wipe it off first though, so I'm going to mix it around in my water as much as I can. Get it as clean as I can from the cup. I'll use my paper towel, washcloth, whatever you have on the side there. Back to a normal clean brush. There might be some black residue. That's okay. We're going to be painting over this stuff. So I'm going to take some more of that blue. I am going to mix it with a little bit of white just to brighten it up. As you see, it was kind of dark. So if I take just the edge of this white, ooh, that's a lot. But if I mix it with this blue here, it's just going to lighten up the blue. And that's what I'm looking for, is just a slightly lighter version of that blue we were just using. Can everybody see that? That's good. Sweet. All right, now that I got this lighter blue, I'm going to come through and I'm going to do parts of this wave. I'm not going to cover too much of this black part though. I want that to stay black. And I'm going to keep my brush strokes the same as all these little lines that I did with the black. I'm going to keep my brush in line with those brush strokes though, because I want it to look like it's mixing together. This will help increase that idea of these ripple effects coming through. Now once I get towards the top of the wave here, we have less and less black. I'm going to go back and get some more of this blue and fill in some of the major areas here just to make sure we know this isn't a black wave. It is still blue. But if we keep to these strokes, you're going to notice that just naturally this is starting to look like rippling water, and there's waves in here. And we're letting just the paint do all the work for us. We're just applying it in the right manner. And it's that easy. I'm going to take some more normal blue here and just mix in the edges. A little bit more normal blue. You can tell I knew I was going to use a lot of blue, so I gave myself some extra blue. And we're going to fill in the rest of this ocean with this blue. And see that, just like magic, we got depth in our ocean. We got some of that blue down. Trying to see how this would curve naturally. You guys might play this, if you are painting along, you might want to kind of find how it would naturally work for yourselves. I imagine it would kind of be like that. Cool. Now we are going to come back and we're going to do some aquas and some other colors in here, but we're going to pause from that because I don't want it to mix too heavily with what I just laid down. So I'm going to come back to that. We're going to do our island here because then once we do the splash and stuff, that might cover part of our island as well. So let's just take a break from that. We're going to dry off those brushes again, let them sit there. Except this angled one, we're going to go back to the small flat angled one. I'm going to rinse it off, make sure we have a clean brush here as we do this. Actually, we're using black, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to use this black now, and we're going to kind of erase this horizon line. We want it to look natural, and we don't want it to just jump from blue to orange. So we're going to put some nature up in here. So I imagine there'd be like a coastline coming up, maybe, I don't know if it's necessarily an island or not, but maybe it's part of the coast and we're on the beach and the coast wraps around. It's really your painting. If you're painting along, just do what you want. Make it natural. If you're just watching, then I'm just explaining how that works in my head. So we're just going to make a little island all in black. Since it's a sunset, we wouldn't see too many details from it. So I'm just kind of making black hills. Now it's also going to come down into the water just a little bit, and more so the closer it gets to the right side of our painting here, because it's getting closer and closer to shore. So I imagine perspective wise it would maybe come out just a little bit, so it would come down from there and then start to go up and kind of start to fade away in the distance. Boom. And that's how we do our little shoreline. Now here's a cool trick. You notice that it's kind of patchy right here. I keep going over it with the black paint, but it just keeps coming out patchy because of those divots and stuff. If you take a little bit of water, just dip your brush in just a little bit of water and mix it into that black, it thins out that black paint, makes it a little more malleable. So if you use that, if I go over the same spot, it works more like ink now, and it'll perfectly cover up all of that. Just because it's a little more liquid base now. It should fill in those cracks, and then we got some nice even mountains, hills. Boom. Now we're going to add some palm trees real fast. So I'm going to rinse off that brush, leave it there for now. I'm going to go to my small detailed brush here, and with this small detailed brush, same thing, I'm going to make sure it's nice and wet, but I'm going to mix some extra water into my black paint with this brush so it acts like ink. So basically just dipping it in there, adding some water to it, and then I'm going to mix that into the paint, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to roll my brush around here so I know that my brush now is full of paint and we're good to go. Now to make these palm trees, this is so easy. All you do is you just start from the top of the tree, try to do one just simple stroke down. It doesn't matter which angle you go at, but if you do that and just pull it down, you have a basic stump. And we're going to do this, let's do it 3 times. We got 1, 2, 3. So there's our base of our palm tree. Now we don't have to get crazy into details. I always like to do this. It's really simple. We just start with an X, make an X at the top of that first palm tree. And then from there, you're just adding more lines or more X's within that palm tree. So we just make that side kind of hang down, part of our X, part of our X. And bam, we have a palm tree. And we got some paint on my hand too, because you can't do this without getting messy. So we'll do this again. It's already dried up a little bit, so let's add a little more water. Roll that into our paint, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll do an X, do another X, 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 and then you can add just a couple lines if you like. Boom, palm tree, no problem. And one more time, we'll do an X, another X, put some lines, palm tree. If you want to do some extra credit, you can always come back and make them a little thicker at the base and then smaller as they go up, just so they look more realistic. Or you could even do bigger lines. And this will give it the perception that it's either a bigger tree, or it's just closer to us in perspective. But it still looks like a palm tree. So simple little tricks like that, your brain will do the rest and fill in the rest of the blanks to know that you're looking at a tree. I mean, simple enough, yeah? Any questions from somebody so far? We're doing good? Just some highs?
Just some highs and sound check. Sound is good.
Love it. Thank you to everybody tuning in so far. I do appreciate you. We know this is a growing experience, but the only way to do it is to do it and learn. So I appreciate all of you for checking us out. There, now we got that part. So believe it or not, we are well more than halfway done with this painting. This is a really fast one. So the next step we got to do is just kind of put some more aquas and stuff into this big wave. I've already set kind of our ripple motions or ripple waves into motion already. So I'm just going to make sure I got some clean brushes to work with. I'm not going to use this big brush anymore. I think we're done with him. We could do the rest of the painting basically with these tools, with the small flat one, the details, and a sponge. So that's the very next step. We're going to do some aqua now. So I'm going to go for this aqua turquoise color. And what I'm going to do is do the same style. I'm going to do some hash marks throughout all of this. I'm going to focus, since we're going to have our sunset right here in the corner, we're going to put most of our bright colors right here in this bottom, if this was a clock, kind of going towards like 7, 8 o'clock direction. We'll see how that plays out. So let me just add some aqua into this. And again, we're sticking with the same principles of just trying to keep our brush strokes with the waves. We don't want to make them too jagged and small brush strokes. We do benefit if they're long, nice, even strokes. But we're going to keep them all going in this same C direction. And you see right here, my paintbrush is running out of paint. That's why we're getting this kind of powdery, chalky look. So again, if you want, you can add some water to your paint. It'll help get rid of that. Or just come back and get some more paint after each stroke. You don't have to do it after a ton of strokes all at once. I have a bad habit of doing that. Sometimes when a painting starts looking good, or maybe it's looking not good, you want to finish it as fast as possible. Sometimes it's easier just to calm down, take your time, try to do a really good job. Okay, I'm going to get the edge of this as well really good, because that's where most of our light would be coming through. Now, you're not limited to just these colors either. You can come back and mix these colors really well, and you're going to get an even more rich environment out of all of this. But even here, if we get closer to shore, I'm going to make it more kind of tropical water and blend just some of this green into here. Or aqua, I'm sorry, it's not green, it's an aqua. Dun, dun. Just filling in these blanks with this wave. Now when we get to the top, we want some bright blues, we want some bright greens there too. So I think we're good with the aqua here. I am going to make just a little bit of a light blue using aqua and our original blue that we had. Might need just a little bit more of that blue we were using here. Yeah, that's the right color. So I'm going to finish out the top of this painting, or the top of this wave, with this more blue color. I'm going to add some more white as we get towards the end, because if you've all seen a wave, you know towards the end of that it starts splashing and plays it away. So we want to capture that same effect. And what's going to happen is it's breaking up. We're going to see a whole lot more white. We're going to see these bright, nice blues. So I'm going to mix these in with a little bit of white as we get there towards the bottom. So there's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just adding some more white into these colors I've already used, just to make it a little bit lighter as we get to the edge of this wave. And I'm going to also go around this edge, because this edge would be super bright since we're seeing just the edge of that water. And I'm going to mix some of this brighter color just kind of towards the middle here. Because I want it to be bright greens and blues here, and then get darker and darker as it gets away. Now I am going fast, and if anybody were to paint along with me, take your time. Please, the point of these videos is that you have fun with it. You can pause, play and stuff in reverse. If you're watching now, there's always something new we could learn, I'm sure. I'm always looking for something I could pick up. That's basically it for that. Let me do a little bit more. I want this wave to splay out a little bit more, and I still got plenty of paint, so I'm going to just have this splash out just a little bit further. Further. And I'm being extra messy here. That's okay, because we're going to come back and we're going to cover this with splashing water anyway. Just get rid of some of these darker colors towards the top of the wave is my goal right now. And I'm just adding water so it spreads more, and we do it more evenly. And let me finish off the end of this. I'm going to start with paint brushes. I'm dabbing here because I want to get that effect. If you don't have a sponge, you would do this, but you would do it with a frayed brush tip that spreads out really a lot. And then you would just dab like this, and you would start to get that effect, like the water's breaking up, it's starting to fall over. But what's really going to make this come together and be really cool is when I use the sponge. The sponge is the hero of this painting, without a doubt. So I'm just doing these dabs and these mashings just to kind of this water's breaking up. And I mean, I think we're there. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is take a good chunk of this white onto my palette here. And even though I did mix and spread here, it's okay. I'm using it with the same color. So I'm going to just add some white pretty thinly here. I imagine in my head that's where it would start breaking up in real life if we had that. So I'll just kind of do little splotches there towards the bottom. And then as this comes out, I'm doing a stamp. You're gonna notice that I'm not smushing it, I'm not scrubbing it, I'm literally just pretending this is a stamp, and I'm pushing stamp on it. I'm rotating it a little bit as well, just so it doesn't look like we've repeated the same pattern too many times. And this is why I also like to do the island first, because maybe you want some of this ocean spray to spray out everywhere, and it's maybe gone over our view of our island, our mountains, hills here. Maybe it even covers a little bit of the palm tree. Boom. That's why we do that first. And you notice if you look through the waves, now that we did all those other colors in there as well, it's going to just be way more realistic. We now have a lot of depth in this as well. And I might, since I still have some white paint here, do a couple of sums up in here so it looks like it's breaking maybe on that edge as well. I kind of follow a line. And burp, burp, burp. Other than a few small details, we're almost done. We're going to put our sun here in a minute. Stamp, stamp. I think that looks pretty good. It's all right, yeah? Looks good. Boom. I'm going to put this aside just so I don't actually put my arm in it like I do everything else. Now let's get our sunset and get some of these glowing colors that come through here as well. So I'm going to go back to, and I got paint all over the handle here. Typical me. All right, I'm going to go back to the small flat brush. I'm going to wipe it off and get it as clean as I can. Now I'm going to add, I'm going to pretend, let's put a little dot where I think the sun should be. I'm going to say like right here, maybe the sunset right here. So I'll put a little white dot there. That's my point of reference now. What I want from here though is that since this sun is setting, I want all the water in this particular line of sight to start lighting up and being a little bit brighter. So as I do this, I'm going to use those same wave kind of patterns I was doing, and I'm going to start bringing this up. And it's going to be really bright against the front part of this wave, maybe to the halfway point. And then we're going to bring it down into the ocean sea level point a little bit as well. Now these are much smaller as you see, but that's because this would just be the highlights of this wave, or that the water's picking up from this sun setting. And I do want to keep my paintbrush wet on this, otherwise it will have that powder effect, and that's not what we want. All right, and then as it gets a little bit brighter and brighter, I think the color or the whiteness would start to fade out, but the colors would start to be a little more apparent. So I'm not going to go too crazy. I'm only going to go to about there with the white. But now we're going to bring in our yellows and oranges because it's bringing in colors from the sky onto this as well. Boom. So let's do some color with it as well. So I'm going to start with my lighter color before I do the orange. I'll just go in with some yellow here. And I'm just going to add same exact thing here. I'm going to just put some ripples in through here. And the cool thing about this is laying down the white first, you're going to see that those parts that I put yellow are so much brighter, almost like you can see the white lines beneath them. That's for a reason. And I'm going to bring this yellow out, and as I bring it out, you're going to see that it doesn't pop as much. And that's okay, because we want this to gradually fade away too. It's going to be strong sunlight in the front, and then gradually less and less sunlight in the back. And then we'll do some orange, and I'm going to do those on the outer edges as well, because towards the center beam of light it would be brighter, at least in my mind's eye. So I'm going to just do some orange coming out the back side of this ray going through the water. And I do need to add some water to this. Now on our panel there, it does say purple. You could at some point, if you had like some purple or magenta, you could actually blend some of that in as well, and I'll just show you as an example. I'll take a little bit of that magenta or purple, and stop bumping the camera. And I'll add some, just the magenta color in here. Some photos of these actual waves that you see will have this magenta color, and it's just the way that the light from the sun and the water is interacting, and you will get almost all the colors of the rainbow through here if you get the right angle. So there's no right or wrong here. Use really just whatever your favorite colors might be if you're painting along. And then boom, now we're going to fill in the rest of this on the way all the way over to our sunset. And that's about it. You can obviously do some extra work tidying up. You can also do little fun stuff like taking some white dots and really doing some different other splatter effects from your wave, just to give it some textures. But at the end of the day, it's your painting. You get to do what you want with it. And I hope I set you up with just a really good, crisp idea of how you could do this, and hopefully you could even do it without my instruction in the future. But other than that, I think we're done. I hope you guys had a great time hanging out with us here today. Again, this was our first one. We're going to do a lot more in the future, and we want to learn from this. But any feedbacks or comments that you could give us would be amazing. Please like, subscribe, check in with us, go to the channel, just see what we're up to, because we're going to be making a whole lot more, and we'd love your feedback on what works and what might not. But thank you so much for checking in, and whether you were painting along or watching even on your toilet or from work, wherever you are, thanks for checking us out. I'm Isto James, and I will see you guys next time.